Keep us going. No, I think it's very high time that we have to discuss this one. I think the moment that I received already the announcement, there were so many questions, volume of those, no? And I think not only me, but I guess everybody else in the panel, everybody else in the participants will have the same, ano nga bang mangyayari? Ano bang dapat gawin? Saan ako magsisimula? Ano ba itong mga bagay na ito? And these are, things that are very natural. Questions that might arise, no, in everybody else, especially us, no, we are educators, and many of us here are administrators. So I think it's very timely, and I'd like to congratulate the Global Professional Advancement for opening this kind of opportunity, this particular platform, and bringing this one aspect to a convergence of everything, so that everybody will actually be so informed about this thing. So the panel for this particular purpose is, how are you getting ready? So you're actually on the next step. That's why it's very good that I've listened so much to panel one, and let's get started. Are you ready? Doctor, ba? Parang may ano lang tayo dito, boxing kung tutuusin. But I want things to be light. I want things to be very casual so that people will appreciate this particular, panel session.
It's like pandesal, Jojo. It's pandesal is the hottest thing in the world. So in the Philippines, the face-to-face limited class is the it topic nowadays. Not only during the day, but also at night, because people are texting, asking questions. So this is really super nice discussion that we're going to be having.
Very much. Not to the extent
of... like a talk show with Tina and Joe.
Oh, no, Doc, mamaya ka. Lagot ko rin sa akin. I hope everybody is enjoying. So, my first question is, what is the existing condition or the prevailing status of the academe when it comes to online vis-a-vis physical interaction? I'd like to know whether, with you being the technical panel, I'd like to know if some did already, or specifically, we're talking about tourism and hospitality here. So, let me know if there is a percentage or a statistics. Let us know about it, and up to what extent. Let me start with the ladies first. Syempre, of
course. Thanks. Actually, Dr. June would have the biggest advantage, because my basis would just be the CHED COVID Advisory number 7 that has actually put a stop to all face-to-face classes. In fact, including also face-to-face practicum. So whenever people ask me, practicum, is it already ongoing? Face-to-face is not allowed. So there are only limited programs that have been given permission or approval to already open for face-to-face, limited face-to-face classes. But I would like to say nothing yet for tourism and hospitality. Am I correct, Dr. June?
passing the limelight, Dr. June. Doc? What about...
Because Dr. June has actually been already testing the waters. He has actually invited already some meaningful people into his school, and they're already taking a look at would this suffice as acceptable measures for face-to-face classes. So maybe Dr. June can walk us through the steps that he has undertaken already.
Doc, I think it's also okay that you can share the experience of Olfo, kasi you started all these things. If I may share, no, talagang nabasa ko kaagad sa isang news portal. Wow, that's a wow. That makes the other schools, should we follow or not? So those are the questions. Doc June?
Yeah, I think when it comes to condition status, I'm not talking about the readiness. I'm talking about the condition now, the atmosphere in the academic arena. Since the start of this pandemic last year, the education disruption was felt, and it actually propelled everyone to migrate from the traditional one to what is supposed to be. The real invention, because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we've been talking about IR 4.0 and nobody listened. And then when the pandemic came last year, so everyone look for avenues where they can be inventive and adaptive. So I think the general atmosphere now, it's everyone is very inventive and adaptive. adapted, we learn to embrace adapted education. And that's why we have evoke flexible learning and flexible education. But the key there is that we should not stop from remote learning, because flexible learning, it has three main stages, and flexible education, and we are in remote learning. And online and remote learning, it is just the first step or first stage of flexible. When we move to what we call blended learning, then that's actually the second stage of flexible education. That's what limited face-to-face is trying to propose or trying to offer. And so that we can move from remote learning or online learning, now move to limited face-to-face. That is through blended learning, adaptive and inventive. Everyone now is inventing the system, and CHED allowed us to be innovative. The use of LMS, or proprietarial or not, secured or not. So we are doing all of this because we would like to, we don't, in the previous panel, it was us. And all the panelists, the STEAM panelists of panel 1, they mentioned that they don't want to sacrifice the quality of education. That's why they have invented everything, and they offer their schools and even their organizational support so that everyone could be inventive as well. When it comes to online, sabi kasi ni Tina, gumawa ako ng aking queue. So
Kodigo ako.
So, kanina 30 minutes before the panel, while I'm having breakfast, so nilalagay ko online versus physical. Jo, can I be candid about it?
Of course.
The online and versus physical education, the main idea here is that how to protect or how to maintain academic integrity.
Of course.
Yesterday, I was in a meeting and in a webinar as well. And the main concern is the academic integrity. Integrity when it comes to giving examinations online, giving assessments, including the skills validations or skills assessment. That is the general sentiment now of the public, or particularly the teachers like us, whether we are really or we are so sure with the academic integrity. Like, for example, when DepEd last year announced that they will not give examinations, right? And a lot of schools reacted on that, and then they have found out that some schools cannot really ascertain measures. Like, for example, in our university, we have seen the presentation of different technology providers on how we can protect academic integrity during assessment. That's one thing. That's why limited face-to-face there is actually one way for us to make sure that the skills, the necessary skills, are really acquired and could be validated by us. Thank you, Joe.
Just to follow up, yes. No, I'm just saying that the school should provide students who have the competencies that are needed by industry. The same token that industry is also want to make sure that the students will actually have the skills. And how do you make sure that this is going to happen? And so the quality of learning that happens, authentic assessment should happen also. And there has to be actually meaningful exchange of information that happens between industry and academe, to make sure that, a lot of things have changed in industry right now. And so I think schools have to make sure that they continue the conversation with their industry partners. Oftentimes, we hear, wala namang practicum, so wala na kaming pakialam sa mga industry partners. But I think now is the time actually to actually have a closer relationship with your industry partners. Why? Because, you have a lot of research classes, and a lot of these industry enterprises now are looking for ways to re-strategize, to recreate some of the products, and maybe research can actually be the venue for schools to actually be partners with their industry. So makikita natin na ang relationship should be really very tight between industry and academe. We cannot just say na saka na when practicum opens, but we have to make sure that that the content, the knowledge, as well as the skills that the students have right now should be also attuned with what industry also needs at the moment. Ayaw mo nga maging obsolete yung knowledge mo, because a lot of times, teachers may have prepared modules already, which are 2 years old, 3 years old. Oh my gosh, a lot has changed in the last 20 months that we have been on pandemic. And so now is the time to actually start your conversation already with your partners. So yung face-to-face, as mentioned also by the chairman of CHED, flexible learning system is here to stay. So do not think of a scenario where everything will go back to what it was prior to March 2020. There would be opportunities for us to have limited face-to-face, and there would be opportunities for us to have still online learning or some kind of flexible learning, simply because there's a lot of investment on both parts already. Schools have invested on technology, on support systems that they have, yung LMS nila, they cost a bundle. They've invested also in their human resource, teacher training, student training. If you take a look at what are the requirements of industry, students might complain, wala na kaming ginawa kung hindi mag-LMS, Zoom, etc. But these are the skills that you're going to be using also when you start work. And so whether it is an LMS, whether it is an OS that you're using, you have to be accepting that things will change. The front office that you knew before might have a different setup already by the time that you get to work 2 years or 3 years from now. And teachers have to be, at the moment, conversing with their counterparts. Ano na ba ang nangbago sa front office? Kasi, when we're conceptualizing virtual soiree on practicum, and Bobby Horrigan was mentioning about an IT butler. O, can you imagine? May IT butler ba dati? Wala naman walang designation na IT butler. Or an IT butler, an e-butler. Somebody who can support a guest. Wala tayong ganyan. But now, it is happening already in the industry. And so, I think education has to move parallel with industry and find out how they can focus that. Kaya nga sinasabi natin na, are we ready? We should be ready because, we have been doing this already, but how do we move from totally zero face-to-face, purely online or purely course kits to limited? Yan ang ating I think yan ang mainit na discussion na gagawin namin ni June. Kung paano kami mag-away-away sa ating meetings sa technical committee. Hindi naman away. Healthy discussion, mental discussions that we would have.
Okay, Bobby Horrigan happens to be the GM of Acacia Hotel, and of course with HRAP for your information.
Yes,
The one that is being, of course, highlighted by Professor Tina here. You know what? I'd like to coin your position for the new syllabus, for new curriculum. You're looking at tourism value chain, and I think that's also a call for this particular moment, that everything in the value chain should actually be looked into, should be reviewed by the administrators, particularly our partners. That's correct, no? And in relation to Dr. June, Doc, I will not be surprised. Baka mas marami mag-apply ngayon ng Open University. What do you think? I'm looking into that already. Anyway, sabi ko sa inyo, kulang ang 45 minutes if I have these two people here. But the information, the reach...
Ayaw nyo, ako na lang mag-moderate sa inyong dalawa.
No, hindi. You're the best, one of the best persons that you can actually talk. Ako ay talagang, moderator kung tutuusin. Can I have the second question? All right. So if we have the first, of course, no? I think the way forward, no? Kasi mandate ito ng government. Susunod talaga tayo kung tutuusin. However, the next is, do you suggest that schools should create a team for them to integrate all the concerns needed for this change? In fact, I learned so much from the session 1. And how are you supposed to deal it? I think being a technical panel themselves, and probably I will not be surprised if you are also ARQUAT, part of the ARQUAT. So what do you suggest for the schools, no? Given you have to get a permit first from CHED, from the local government, everything. And how do you think the team will actually be comprised of? Can you share a thought on this? Let's have Dr. Jun muna naman this time. Jun?
Yeah, I think it's a question about team. I'd like to share my experience. I think the deans who are here, we are in this webinar can probably relate. One of the hardest, difficult things that we can experience, yung remote supervision and remote administration as well. So it's hard. Unlike before, when you into accreditation, you're in the university, you can see everything and so on. But now you have the team. So administratively, you really need to have teams and you need to use technology. But when it comes to, well, we had last year, the chair Popoy went to our university, visited our facilities as well in HRM together with Secretary Galvez. And also last week we had also the LGU inspection of our dentistry and our hospitality and tourism facilities. Now, when it comes to teams, yes, I would probably suggest one, you have safety protocols. Safety protocol wherein they'll be the one to identify, because we created video for the safety protocols. We have the video for the ingress and the egress on how they will go to the laboratory, how they go to the enter the building, and so on. The safety protocols, including, like, for example, the general guidelines and procedural guidelines. The second thing I would probably suggest, you have curriculum reshapers.
Yeah.
The curriculum reshapers. Curriculum reshapers, because before, our idea of curriculum is just one piece of paper where you have the list all the subjects. But this time, curriculum reshapers, they have so many things to do. And I hope some of my colleagues in Olpus team are here. And we always fight over we always fight about, we just had a verbal tussle yesterday about the melos, or the most essential learning outcomes. And then we had also we spoke about performance indicators. Why is it that performance indicators should be placed in that learning outcomes? And then why is it should have this number of hours? And curriculum shapers, they have to map. Unlike before, we don't have, we even in the advent of OBE, we did not take it so seriously when it comes to mapping. We really need to have a full-blown curriculum map. A full-blown curriculum map is that in each subject you have the learning outcomes, and you will see that there will never be overlapping learning outcomes or intended learning outcomes, and even the performance indicators. And it is something new for the heads and chairs of universities and colleges. Before, we only do that in TESDA. I think TESDA will provide you the training regulations and so on and so forth. Then you use all of this. But this time in curriculum mapping, they have so many things to do. The third committee probably, or team that you have, probably you have the laboratory and technical support, because the laboratory, they'll be the one to make sure that the safety protocols are in place, make sure that the needed cameras are there. We thought that the AI at first, I thought, ang yabang ko, we only need AI-enabled camera in the laboratory. Only to find out, when we tested it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So that's why we simulated it. We simulated and we used a different camera in order for us to have the half of the class in the laboratory, half of the class in the Zoom meeting, and then everyone can interact. So that's one way. And the curriculum reshapers, they are also they are the people in charge of our hybrid learning program. So these three teams are very important to me, and I'm pretty much sure the other deans can give more other teams or list of teams. But for me, these three teams are very important. The people in charge of the safety protocol, the people that will do your hybrid plan, your curriculum reshapers, and then also the laboratory and technical support. The technical support, before, our laboratory technician, ang role lang niya magbigay ng mga equipment, materials.
Yeah,
But now they
reservation,
were trained
ganyan.
how to use. They were trained how to use the Zoom. They were trained how to use the monitor, the camera, because they will be deployed also in the laboratory.
And I think, Doc John, not only that, they need to train also the faculty as part of their job descriptions.
Yeah.
Oh no. Ang dami talaga nangyari. But I think no, sabi ko nga correct si Doc Jun no, talagang we have to integrate. We have to integrate also some curriculum or some courses na po pwedeng yung output integrated para the best curriculum mapping will actually arise. So sana magawa din natin yon with this. Well, I'm moving to a hybrid approach already, Doc Jun, if ever. Ma'am Tina, what can you say about that?
The promise of the outcomes-based education was actually based on making sure that the learning outcomes have been defined and that gaps have been avoided and overlaps have been avoided as well. And so, ngayon nakikita na natin na meron palang importanteng halaga yung outcomes-based education na we were actually forced, I think a couple of years back, to transition into. But now that Doc June mentioned about the Melo, kala ko na, una namin pinag-usap, Melo, steak, sabi namin, hindi ba steak? Sabi niya, yun nga, yung most essential learning outcomes have been defined. But going back to what panel 1 discussed earlier, if you're not looking at doing limited face-to-face classes at this time, it doesn't mean you're not supposed to constitute yet your team. It means that you have to start work already, because it takes a lot of time to actually plan that out, because there's a lot of documents that you need to submit, a lot of checks that you have to make as well, retrofitting that has to be done. Yung sinasabi ni Doc June kanina, yung team, I'd suggest also like maybe have a monitoring and evaluation team, because what you need to do, what can be perfect already for at this time may not be perfect 3 months down the road, simply because there are conditions that have changed already. So the monitor, yun ang sinasabi namin palagi, yun our discussion at the technical committee would always focus on why are we regulating this? Why are we regulating this? Kasi ako ang thought ko palagi is that should be management initiative, discretion na nila paano gawin yon. Because there might be conditions that are present in their locality, in their particular school, that may not be the same as the other schools. And so if we put limits or we put maximum things already in a particular, in each of the provisions that we have, baka mamaya maging challenging also for the schools to comply with. So the monitoring and evaluation would be, the plans that you've made already, does it mean these are all written in stone? Na hindi na pwedeng palitan. There has to be an effectivity date, and there has to be changes that will have to be, just because you've done it once doesn't mean na tapos na ang gera. Kailangan magbago uli. Yun nga, kailangan sinasabi namin is you have to also constantly review the plans that you've made, because there might be some changes that will be that will have to be undertaken as a result of new developments. And that is a mindset, that is a mindset that we have to be accepting right now, because a lot of educators, ang tagal na ginawa yan inabot kami ng ilang gabi, ilang linggo, etc. Only to find that in a matter of a few weeks, biglang palit. Kaya nung sinasabi ni Doc June, example nila yung knife cutting skills lang ng bata, na pipili ka pala ng kutsilyo, hindi mo pala basta bahalang ipapagawa sa bahay, because you've got to make sure that the foundation courses are actually more critical now as compared to the advanced or intermediate courses. Why? Because that sets the tone, the technical level, the cognitive. Bakit kailangan lagyan ng wet towel sa ilalim ng chopping board? Bakit ganito? Bakit, those things are actually very important that students should learn as early as their foundation course, because when you go into the advanced courses, it's just a matter of putting all the cooking methods together, etc. But the foundation skills have to be well defined, have to be well learned by the students as early as day one of their kitchen or housekeeping, kung ano for that matter. So that was the long discussion that we had in our technical committee, that we should give as much leeway for the decision makers in a particular school to make, but setting minimum guidelines in school. So I agree with Dr. June's committees. Yun nga, yung curriculum, reshapers, kasi yung curriculum natin na ginawa dati might be outdated na for one in terms of content, but you also have to make sure that you define what should be learned there. You also have the yung multi-skilling, capacity building ng inyong mga tao. Hindi porke ikaw ang nagtuturo lang, yun lang. Kailangan marunong ka ng paano pumesto sa Zoom, paano kumuha ng picture, paano paglagay ng pagkain doon na makikita ng mga off-class students, yung kanilang ginagawa. So, yung lab attendant na dating lang, ngayon technical expert, IT na rin, IT expert na rin ang ginagawa. So, those are things that you have to prepare, and it will take time for them to do that, because kaya nga sinasabi, if you are going to be looking at when to open, to do limited face-to-face, just the preparation alone, Dr. June, would 3 months suffice? Mahina. So, the beauty about Olfu, they have had experience already in limited face-to-face because of their allied and medical. So they know what are needed. But if you're a school coming from nothing, wala kayong limited face-to-face ever, there will be a lot of things that you'll have to learn on the ground. So magwa-walk through kayo, magsasample kayo kung paano papasok yung mga bata, saan sila uupo habang, sabi nung una namin, ano ba itong staging room na ito? Sabi namin kay Dr. John na nag-uusap kami. Sabi niya, yan yung habang nag-iintay yung estudyante bago pumunta doon sa kanilang laboratory, dapat may facility kang ilalagay. So the experience of all makes it easy for them because they know already what are needed. But for those schools that have not learned, kaya si Dr. June, when he posts something in Facebook, basahin ninyo. Kasi yun yung mga yung systems thinking approach, yung mga sinasabi niyang mga ganyan. Kasi kailangan titingnan mo talaga lahat ng components. Hindi ka lang pupunta ako sa laboratory, tapos na. Hindi, titingnan mo pa yung corridor, titingnan mo yung restroom, titingnan mo yung cafeteria, mga rules niyo sa cafeteria. Because those are areas, dati limited lang to faculty yung vaccination. Bakit kayo kasama pa kung sino-sino? So those are the system is really telling you that you cannot just exist as one, but you have to take a look at all the other elements that come together that will have interaction with your program. So, in other words, yes, agree ako kay Dr. June sa pero dagdagan ko lang yung monitoring and evaluation team. Yeah, thank you.
So that's medical team. Probably the clinic will will be involved so much. The curriculum, of course, the chairperson, the curriculum reshapers, the IT, those in the multimedia, and of course, there should be a monitoring team for that purpose. I love those fours, no? But again, no, I'd like to highlight yung customized approach then on how to build this team. If I have to go back to go into the next one, what are the areas of concerns for the team if you are to suggest regarding the structure, functions, and roles? I think these are being addressed already with our discussion. Can we move on to the next question? Now, are we limited to laboratory classes, particularly internship, as to the implementation of the announcement? Medyo glaring kasi, nakita ko, initially, merong announcement na pang ganito lang. Tapos biglang parang close lang kami, no? Si Popoy actually announced oo. Made mention about all
panel na to.
Oo, diba? Popoy, on that level. Sorry naman po, Commissioner. But of course, no, yun kasi mga nababasa ko, Popoy, o nakipopoy na rin lang ako. But of course, he's our CHED Commissioner. So what about for a typical classroom lecture to happen? Can you give us a thought on this? Ano ba talaga? Is it really only for laboratory or should we approach already na lahat ng classes? What's your take on this? Let me, of course, start with Ma'am Tina this time. Ma'am Tina?
Thank you. Okay. Can you imagine the current scenario that we have? The current scenario that we have is totally no face-to-face. So people are full-time either doing course skits or doing face-to-online classes or blended, some kind of blended learning that they have, asynchronous, synchronous. But we realized that we had to do something. You know, when the IATF came out with a resolution recently, Malacanang came out with a notice that tourism and hospitality will now be included as priority programs. You should have seen the Viber messages that we had in our CHED Technical Committee group. Talagang uminit. Ang sabi niya, kasi ang mangyayari daw, nakalagay doon was, limited face-to-face classes will happen in industry. Sabi namin, anong kinalaman ng industry dito? So, we had to come together. We had to actually have an emergency meeting and decide, feasible ba to? Si industry tatanggap, hindi nga tumatanggap ng practicum, tapos tatanggap ng klase doon sa industry. So we had to redefine it. And so during our discussion, we came out with several rationale, reasons why people have to go for limited face-to-face. One is the use of specialized equipment, either software or hardware. Because initially, our thoughts were just on the kitchens, on the FBS, on the housekeeping. But there are some softwares that were installed in laboratories that are licensed. So they cannot be deployed outside of the school premises. So yon. Number two is there is also supposed to be direct supervision that will happen by the teacher. Hindi mo kayang gawin ang isang bagay kung kunwari dine-demonstrate niya. Iba kasi, if you go to the cone of learning, what is the best way of learning? The best way of learning is when you do multisensory activities. So eyes, listen, tapos hand, ginagawa mo. And the more senses used, the better for the learner. And right now, it's just seeing, hearing, pero wala kang ginagawa sa online. So, yung mga housekeeping activities, yung mga FBS activities, kailangan. So, this would really focus on the laboratory component. The third is, if there is need for some kind of sensory evaluation. So, paano mga matitikman na kapag luto nga si estudyante sa bahay, paano man matitikman yung pagkain na linuto niya, di ba? So, or cocktail mixing, paano mo naman anuhin yung So, pag may kailangan na sensory evaluation, yun yung pwedeng magkaklase. Kaya, when we were defining ano yung mga klase, sabi namin, we initially started off with the list of tourism and hospitality courses that we had. But the thing is, there are also elective courses. Paano na ngayon yung mga focus on cruise line? Paano na ngayon yung focus on airline? Ang daming mga nagtayo ng mga aircraft, di ba, Dr. June? Sa mga eskwela nila. So paano nila magagamit yun? Because it's still different. There are a lot of specialized equipment that students have to see, to touch, to experience. Paano mo magagawa yun pag nasa bahay ka? So but the lectures will, I think, continue on being done online or synchronous or asynchronous. We are looking really at opportunities for students to further on their learning with hand technical skills that cannot be done at home because of certain limitations that we have. So that's it. And Dr. June, what will you add to my discussion thoughts?
Dr.
I'll try to be pragmatic as much as possible with this question. No, you were asking about should it be only for laboratory? Well, basically that's why we call it limited face-to-face or gradual opening. So you have to identify, because in blended learning, you have to, based on your curriculum map, this one cannot be taught online or remotely or asynchronously. This one should be taught using the hybrid or using the limited face-to-face. Well, my answer there would be, why do you have to address the entire map or the entire curriculum wherein you are still in the, pasabi ko nga, parang nagbubukas ka ulit ng school. I mean, you have to seek permission and so on and so forth. Tama yung kay Director Rakyate kanina, though na-visit ka ng LGU, but you need the permit from CHED as well. So you have to start, in my experience, in Our Lady of Fatima University, we identified three core subjects and then 8 specialization subjects. And then we identified how many hours and how many learning outcomes only. So that's the essence of limited face-to-face, so that the students will not just go to the university and then they will sacrifice their health for nothing. I mean, they will just go there, and then it was also mentioned by Dinebuen that you have to close even the areas that they know they don't need. Like for example, the ALGU, when they visited us, are you going to use the third floor? No. Then put markings or put something that so that the students will not go to the third floor. So that's actually well, I think I will agree with the Ma'am Tina, but I will not reveal our meeting in the executive Bible. Okay. Well, the pronouncement, it's a bit confusing. The pronouncement was a bit confusing because we that's the reason why the technical committee should sit down and talk about this. Kanina may nakita ko, in CMO 18, it was released. CMO 18, it was released last October 11, signed by
13.
the chair. October 11 it was signed, and it was released October 13 ba, Ma'am Tina? You know that CMO 18 underwent a tedious process, and we had even consultation about this limited pay. And the way I look at it, the CMO 18 will remain, and then it will actually stand as is, with or without the pandemic, because we have enumerated there the options that you can have. And that's the reason why, and then we are now creating a new CMO, the guidelines for the limited face-to-face. And it's up to the discretion of the as mentioned by Mantina, discretion of the school, whether they are going to have the limited. But the very nice question there is that which of the subjects in the curriculum would you open for limited face-to-face? If you think that business communication can be taught remotely or via online, why will you include that subject under
or force yourself to have a physical face-to-face? That's correct.
Limited face-to-face. And lagi kong ginagamit na example kayo yung Ma'am Tina. I thought before the basic kitchen knife skills is a simple subject and it's a simple topic. Only to find out when the chef explained to us, and then there are so many requirements, then I think that should be under the limited face-to-face as well. Thank you.
I think that actually nasagot niyo dapat itatanong ko dapat that sana yung IRR with your next CMO, there will be subjects or courses that will actually be considered for which one will be considered for limited, which one will maybe considered still as remote pa rin kung tutuusin. Pero ang tanong yata ng mga co-teachers ko and of course our admins, kailan po kaya ito? Kailan po kaya? I mean,
alam nyo, ang pinakamadali, basahin na nila ang yung mga joint memorandum circulars na nakalabas. Because more or less, that will be the pattern that we will have. But we will have some unique flavor that is specific for tourism and hospitality. So, it will not change. Kasi actually, we have to defend this initially with the technical working group on flexible learning. Tama ba yun, Dr. June? And they noted that we had a lot of guidelines that were really part already of IATF decision. So sabi namin, siguro babawasan namin because ultimately, it's really a decision that will have to be taken by the school. Are they ready? Because yung number of students will impact also on the number of subjects that they will put on face-to-face. Kasi can you imagine, may mga limited capacities pa. Yung number of people who can occupy a given space. So you have to put that into account also. A lot of decisions have to be made, and but we're saying that it's up to the school if they want to do face-to-face or continue the current practice that they're doing. But again, mindful also of what the students need to have by the time that they get to graduate. So if you can delay or if you can put it in a modular way where all the laboratories will happen towards the end of the semester, it's up to the school how they want to envision the limited face-to-face, considering all these variables that they have to contend with.
Okay. And I think we have to consider also the local, the physical situation of municipality or cities that your
Correct.
schools may
Correct.
belong to, no?
Uh-uh.
Let me have my next question. Just to facilitate, what I will do is for every question I'll ask one person because we have limited time. We have still another one. So can you have the next question, please? So I have Ma'am Tina a while ago. So this is actually for
Yun
Dr.
na.
Is there any move of consultations, especially among students, teachers, administrators, and TPs, especially the parents, practically for being part of the technical panel? What do you think, sir?
Yeah, well, because I have done that in our university and
Oh, that's
doing
good.
the guidelines. I think I have also proposed. I have suggested as well that consultation, stakeholders consultation, but organizationally, your technical committee, headed by Ma'am Tina and yours truly, we had actually we tested the sentiment of the people, the tourism stakeholders. And last April, we floated a survey, a national survey, and we got good respondents or responses from different regions. And now, in that research, you can actually see the responses and sentiments of people back then in Region 3, would deeper in Region 4, in Region 5, and so on and so forth. So that's what we have. That's what we have done. That's actually that research paper that the survey that we conducted became as a tool for the guidelines that we are currently doing. Now, in the university, yes, university and the college, you need to have the stakeholders consultation. You have to for the non-teaching. Are they vaccinated? The teachers as well, and same thing with the students. The students will probably because probably nilagay mo in your guidelines those who can only those students at the age of people or students that will undergo limited face-to-face age 20 years old, because that's the JMC, that's the JMC. Pero nakita mo during the consultation, we found that may mga 19 years old and 18 years old kami na vaccinated na. So, and they are willing to undergo limited face-to-face simulation as well. So I think consultation is very important, so that you can, it's one way for you to get their feedback. And then I think there's a panel for that. Right? There's a panel 3, that's students' feedback. And that's actually very important. Students' feedback or the consultation with your stakeholders. And then that's one way for you to, doon pasok yung monitoring na review and monitoring ni Ma'am Tina as PQA expert. So doon papasok yung monitoring. So what we have learned from the feedback or stakeholders consultation, nire-retool namin ngayon yung guidelines namin sa protocols, and even in others aspect of our limited face-to-face. And my answer there, it's yes. You need that. And in fact, it's one of the requirements. You have to document that consultation happened. Remember, Dean Ebuen sa panel 1, sabi niya, nag-retrofit ka nga. Ayaw naman pala ng estudyante mo na mag-limited face-to-face. So I think that consultation is very important. And that very example of a statement of Dean Ebuen, sila kasi nag-inspect ng mga medical and allied courses. So that's very important, the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to go to the next question. Can you flash it? I think this is more on the survey, but I think I have to move to another one. I'm talking about the 65%. Can you move to that question already? I think all of these things were. Ayan. I noticed. Can you move back? Ayan. This is from Tina. I noticed that the survey also revealed 65% of having probably next year for the implementation. Can you share your thoughts on this so that we can give some, light?
Yes, we're actually at the last quarter already of the year.
Yeah,
So that means to say, forget about opening classes this year because it will take you a while to do a lot of the plans, the training, capacity building, as well as the retrofitting. So most probably you're looking at next year. Next year, there are some different sentiments that were revealed. Some wanted it first quarter. But majority, actually, the survey that we did with Dr. June together with the other technical committee members was very enlightening because we got perceptions from three types of stakeholders. We got
I
it from
have to agree,
industry.
ma'am. My perception is different from the result, so that's a
Uh-uh.
good thing.
Uh-uh. Okay, a survey from the students, from the administrators, from tourism industry, and from government. And so that 65% varies from the different groups, but most of them were actually looking at most probably next academic year. And so you're looking at academic year 2022-2023. Sabi ko nga, dahil nag-iba-iba na ang school year ng maraming klase, hindi na namin alam kung kailan nagsa-start ang first sem. May nag-umpisa ng June, may nag-umpisa ng August, may nag-umpisa ng September. So that variance would actually be also working for because then you have what? Some students, if they want to do limited face-to-face, iba-iba ang start point. So you will see if kaya ba ng public transport. One of the questions that we asked, nagtaka sila, bakit tinanong pa tong question na to? How many rides do you take to commute to school? Sabi ko, kasi hindi naman nag-iisa yung bata, di ba? When they go from the house to the school, they commute. Yung iba, ang pinakamalaki yatang sagot was 2 rides. So, yung ride na yon is open for contamination kasi dala-dala mo na yung bagahe na yon, di ba? Sumasakay na si virus, sumasakay na si bacteria sa'yo, tapos dadating ka sa classroom. So, miski yung isang tao na sumakay ng ng private sasakyan, hahalo siya ngayon doon sa naka-commute. So, then you have to make sure that environment is still secure for all types of students. So mixed na kasi yung grupo na hindi ka naman dumadating ng ano ba yon? Ano ba yung palabas si John Travolta, yung naka-balloons siya kasi hindi siya makaano ng iba. Hindi naman tayo physically na separate from other. So that's why you have to also have a changing room, etc. So a lot of things have to be prepared for the eventual opening of limited face-to-face. So I would agree that next year would be more realistic in terms of planning because ilan lang ba ang tao ng CHED din? At saka ng tao, yung mga taga-DOH who will go and visit the different schools to check if everything is okay already in terms of retrofitting.
And you have to agree with me, ang RQAT natin, mga deans din ng school. So, hindi ko alam kung paano nito gagawin ang monitoring. Pagpapaschedule pa lang, parang mahihirapan na rin to.
Correct.
Anyway, you know what? Much as I want to, discuss further about all these things, but I think we were able to highlight, the gist and the intention of my co-faculty here and, of course, some of our administrators. Let me have your final word with this question. Can we have the last question, please? Ayan. So personally, are you going in favor of the announcement? If not, then when is the best time? I think nasagot na rin to ni Ma'am Tina. So I'll give the point now to Doc June. Doc June, let me have your thoughts on this or your share.
No, actually...
Mag-away kayo sa technical panel dahil sa question ko. Hawag naman.
Oo nga. Joe, actually, there are... the way I look at it, because I think some are so anxious about it, and I'm offering my experience in this pursuit. Tina mentioned about retrofitting and so on. And the bulk of the work would not be in retrofitting. And retrofitting, you give that to the institution or to the management and administration. The bulk of the work really in your curriculum. In your curriculum, the content, really, you really have, you need to spend much time. Unlike sa retrofitting, you just buy this, ano yun, Ma'am Tina, HEPA, something, you just You just
HEPA filter. Oo.
HEPA
Yung
filter,
mga acrylic dividers.
buy this and then put them and
Tapos
place
na.
them based on the. But during the inspection or during the interview, you really have to check which of the contents or which of the items in your subject, not just the subject, which item or which topic in the subject you need to implement or you need to deploy limited face-to-face, and what kind of assessment you will do, and what performance indicators will there be, what kind of performance indicators that you have there. So I think that the bulk of, so the deans and program heads who are here, don't worry too much on retrofitting. I tell you, kung sabi nga ng mga heads ko, Dean, pag ba pinresent natin yung FMB laboratory natin, dapat walang tablecloth kasi sabi ng ating safety protocol, dapat walang linen. So sabi ko, okay, for presentation purposes, lagyan natin ng cloth, but during the actual deployment, alisin natin ng cloth para walang so we can wipe it out. So pwede mong linisin ulit. So madali sa retrofitting. A lot of things to get hard to re-engineer how many years ng education system. That's the hardest part. That's why you need to have people really who can help you decide, Dean, itong limang, like for example, before it should be our limited face-to-face should sit only on week 13 of this semester. Now we found out that it should be week 10. And then what are the learning outcomes of week 10? The learning outcomes of week 11, the learning outcomes of week 12, and so on and so forth. And then what are the performance indicators? And then what are the assessments that you will do with that you will use? So that's the I don't know kung nandito yung mga taga Olpu, and they will say, yeah, that's what he's doing, and he's making our lives difficult in terms of mapping. That's one way, because modesty aside, ang thinking mo doon, kung parent ka ba, bakit ipapasacrifice mo ang health ng yung anak na pupunta lang siya doon na wala naman palang gagawin? I mean, yung teacher hindi rin ready, yung school hindi rin ready sa facilities. So, tendency, maggagala-gala na lang yan o magpupunta ng mall na lang yan. That's my take on that, John. Thank you.
Dr. June, how long did it take you?
The journey?
The reshaping of the curriculum. Just to give an idea.
Months.
Kasi it does, you're talking of what? Alang months? Months is with an S, plural yan. So ilan yan?
I think
More than 1 month.
I think 6 months would be 3 to 6 months will be enough for the curriculum.
That's correct.
And it's not just
it depends on the time that you spend. Yeah.
And it's not just the crafting of the curriculum, because now you have to retrain your faculty on the new thing. So it's that's another timeline that you're looking at, because you cannot train while the curriculum is still being fixed, or di ba? So iba-iba, yun nga sinasabi ni Dr. June, there are things that you can do simultaneously, but there are things that you will have to do once one thing is done, sequential. So kailangan mo matapos muna itong plan A bago mo mag-plan B. So you're looking at months really. So tapos na, October na tayo, so the earliest, kung lumabas man yung CMO, yung guidelines natin, Dr. June, may mga examples na kaming ginawa doon. So salamat doon sa mga nagbigay ng examples. Pero still, hindi naman yun nakasulat in black and white. You have to still contextualize it to your operation, because iba-iba ang content ng school di ba? Iba-iba ang iba-iba ang specific skills na gusto mong i-train ito ang brand ninyo, ito dapat magaling kayo. Ito ang brand nito, ito ang dapat yung gagawin. So you have to contextualize it based on what you want to promote as a minimum, most essential learning outcomes. Yun nga, Melo. Hindi si steakhouse.
Thank you so much for our panel. Dagdag ko lang, no? Not to mention, bago ang curriculum natin, nandito tayo sa pandemic, bago ang learning outcome, at ang modality natin kung may modular ka pa. So all of these considerations, talagang lahat bago. Kaya yung sinasabi natin with the preparation of the curriculum reshapers, isang malaking bungtong hininga ang alay ko sa inyo. And with that, let's give a clap to our panelists. Maraming salamat po. Grabe. This has been a very, very fruitful discussion for all of us. It will give a heads up, of course, for our moderators, for our administrators and our faculty members who are here with us. So